stepping aside and creating an opening in his seat, which I appreciate him doing. And that will give me an opportunity at the Premier's discretion to be able to get elected and come back into the legislature as an MLA and be able to do the job as an MLA representing Vancouver-Quilchena. So I'm excited about that opportunity. I do want to say just at the outset here that I know I want to send some special words out to the Premier, who will be coming back to the legislature, I think, for the first time this week. And I want the Premier to know I've known him for many years, obviously as political adversaries, but he's a very good man. And I hope that his recovery goes very, very well and that he makes a complete and full recovery, because we need him to be healthy and to do the great job that I know he'll continue trying to do. As far as my role here, it's been great to be back at the legislature. I was here at 6:30 in the morning and getting started on things. I'm excited. We've got some changes that we've made. I'll just briefly summarize. I've asked Shirley Bond, first of all, to continue on in her role as the official opposition leader here in the legislature. I think she's done an exemplary role up to this point, and I've asked her to continue doing so while I get to work making sure I'm prepared to run in an upcoming by-election, and also make sure I get to undertake the work that we need to do, getting to know the caucus, the staff, and of course, getting the BC Liberal Party rebooted, re-energized, and rebuilt. And so I'll be spending a lot of time doing those things while she continues to do a great job managing the caucus over here. I'm also pleased that Todd Stone is going to be the new House leader. Todd is someone I have an enormous amount of confidence in. He's been a great voice of support and an advisor to me as we go forward, and I know he will do an exceptional job. Peter Millibar, who is an outstanding House leader, is going to be the new finance critic, and we will have a complete detailed list of some of the other changes I've made for you, but a few noteworthy ones I want to touch on that I think are important for you to know about. As you know, every leadership race can be tough, and it can be challenging because, you know, people are trying to win, and it's not easy, and it's not easy losing. Frankly, I've been there. I know what that's all about. But one of the things that makes me feel so happy today is the unanimity that was shown as we had our first caucus meeting with me as the leader of the BC Liberal Party. And I was pleased to appoint Ellis Ross today to be the critic for energy and LNG. And I can't think of anybody in our caucus that has more credibility and more respect over the issues around energy and LNG than Ellis Ross. And he's agreed to take on that role, and I really appreciate him for that. In terms of Michael Lee, he's also been great, and he stood up and he's willing to take on the role of being the critic for Indigenous relations. There's nothing more important than making sure that we have, going forward, a great relationship with First Nations across this province, one built on reconciliation and respect, mutual respect, and working together in a like-minded way to try and achieve good outcomes for local First Nations in every part of this province. And with respect to Renee Merrifield, Renee is going to be the new critic for environment and climate change. And that's a passion for me, because I've said from the very beginning when I launched this campaign that environment is something I want to make sure that we are leaders on again as a BC Liberal Caucus. We were the first government in North America to bring in the revenue neutral carbon tax back in 2008. I always remind the public that the NDP fought stridently against that revenue neutral carbon tax and fought an election against us on it. And we won that election in large part because we were the first government in North America to move forward with real systemic change to tackle the challenge of our generation. And that's something going forward I want to make sure we're leaders on again, and we will be. And so with those opening comments, I'd like to just leave it over to you and ask questions. And I'm thrilled to see you all again. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kevin. We're going to start things off with Rob Shaw from Check News.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Rob.
Can you give us your thoughts on what you expect from the throne speech from the government tomorrow, what you're hoping to see, what you think they might do or not do, and what you expect from this session as well?
Well, you know, I'm going to be honest with you and tell you this, that I'm less interested in words and I'm really more interested in actions. And one of the things that has disturbed me over the last almost 5 years has been we've heard a lot of words about things, whether it's $10 a day daycare, you know, whether it's about building this hospital or that. But what I don't see is anything actually happening on the ground. And this, I think, is a fundamental departure between ourselves as the new BC Liberal Re-energized Caucus in the NDP, is that we got things done. I mean, we weren't perfect in government, for sure we weren't, and we made mistakes. And I think we have to have the humility to acknowledge when we made mistakes. But we did get the big things right, and nobody could say that the grass grew under our feet. I was Minister of Transportation for 6 years, and you know that we got a lot done just in those 6 years. Much more than I've seen happen over the last 5 years, for sure, way more. And I do think that what I'll be looking for is not words so much, but actions. Where are they taking the province, and what measurable outcomes can we look at to see that things are actually going to happen?
Do you have a follow-up, Rob?
Andrew Wilkinson's resignation, is that effective today? Do you know when the clock sort of starts ticking, and then the premier has 6 months to call the by-election? What do you expect from him in terms of how long he might take in your, if you'd be disappointed if he took the full 6 months, or what, how you kind of view that timeline?
I think he'd be so happy to have me back here. I can't imagine he'd want to wait 6 months. But look, that'll be up to the premier, and he'll make that decision on the timeline that he thinks is appropriate. I'd like to get back here as soon as possible, and I would hope that the NDP would love to see me back here as soon as possible. I'm not sure that'll be the case, but I always remain hopeful. In terms of the timing, that's something that Andrew, I think, has to work out with the clerk's office. So I'm not exactly sure what the date will be. But I do know that he has graciously said that he would do it at the earliest possible date to try and open up that opportunity for me to get back in the House as soon as possible.
All right, over to Rob Buffin.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Rob.
How do you respond to the critics who said you're not the fresh face, the new leader, that you are yesterday's man, to use an expression? How do you get over that narrative and move the party forward?
I kind of enjoy that narrative, especially when it's people like John Horgan and Mike Farnworth and some of these folks throwing it at me, because look, I've spent the last 10 years in the private sector, and I do come back actually as a fresh face with the experience that I had in government as a leader, as a Minister of Finance and Transportation and Health, but I've also got private sector experience, and I think that's a really good combination to have. Now, a lot of those folks that are saying that, I can't help note the irony that they have been here their entire adult lives. The only jobs that they've ever had have been staffers here or as politicians. And while there's always a role for people who are career politicians, I actually think the public is going to want to see some folks that also have some private sector experience. And so, look, I mean, they can say that about me, but let's also talk about what does baggage really mean? I was there for 12 years. I retired, as you know, in 2012, but I was part of a government that won 3 successive majority governments. I'm pretty sure that the public of the day didn't think it was baggage they were voting for. What they were voting for was the fact that we got big things done. And what I'm saying to the public today is, I want them to know this, that I am going to work hard and be relentless about the fact that the reason I'm doing this is because I want to see big things done in British Columbia. I want us to tackle the challenges that our society is facing, whether it's climate change, whether it's affordable childcare, whether it's mental health and addictions, whether it's growing the economy. And the difference between myself and the NDP is that they'll talk about it. They'll have lots of great meetings. They'll produce lots of paperwork. People will be in meetings and processing things and all the rest of it. We'll get things done. Because the difference between the private sector and public sector is we know how to execute, and we know how to get things done. And I think that in government, that's important too, having that skill set. That's what'll separate me from them.
You have a follow-up, Rob?
I do. I think I heard you made a comment over the weekend when you won,
Yes.
that you hope to grow the party and plan to grow the party in all parts of the province. And I think you said even Vancouver Island.
Yes.
It's been an orange wave here, as you know.
It has.
How do you go about doing that? It's such a difficult thing.
It has. Well, first of all, I just want the residents of Vancouver Island to know that they also deserve a government that's going to look out for their interests. And, we have different views, the NDP and ourselves. And when they make good decisions, as I also said in that speech, I will support them when they make the right decisions. I've done it in the past. I'll do it again going forward. For example, when they moved forward with Site C, I supported that. We launched that project. I think it was very important. I don't like the way it's been managed, but I like the fact that they went ahead with it. So when they do the right thing, I'll support it. But I'll also say this to the folks in the island: we are going to have to earn back their support and their trust. And one of the reasons why I am campaigning and did on this leadership from the get-go, talking about those issues of being leaders on the environment again, talking about affordable $10 a day daycare, but making sure it actually gets done. I mean, we are in almost year 5 of an NDP government. They've been talking about $10 a day daycare from the day they first got elected. And I'm still looking for it. And I think a lot of people in the island and the rest of the province are too. And, you'll remember we brought in all-day kindergarten when I was part of government. We had that done within a year. So I think there's a problem of just getting big stuff done this government suffers from. And my message to the island is, if you really want genuine action on the environment, if you really want actual $10 a day daycare that you can get your kids to before they're graduating from university, and if you want to see changes in terms of what we see in the streets, the social chaos and disorder in the streets and the increasing sense of the lack of safety, then you might want to listen to what solutions the BC Liberals have, with compassion, but also with some clear direction on how we want to go differently in the future. And I think if we do that with sincerity and work hard, and believe me, I will work hard, then I think we can earn back that trust. So thank you.
Great, we're gonna go over to McLean Kay, the Yorka.
Hi, Kevin, congratulations.
Thank you, McLean.
I think almost from the day you announced your candidacy, you had a lot of attention foisted on you by the NDP, news releases, parody Twitter accounts, a regular segment on the Attorney General's podcast.
Yes.
Were you aware of it, and what did you think of it at the time?
Well, you know, I tell you, I've been around long enough to know that when someone's paying that much attention to you, it's generally not because they're not concerned about you. And I think the reason why I got more, I guess, press releases from the NDP party than all the other candidates combined is because they knew which candidate they were most concerned about. And I'll tell you this silliness about baggage, bring it on. Bring it on. Because I will put our record in government, and not, as I've said before many times, not a perfect record, but I will put our record in government up against the NDP any day of the week. And I'm going to be out talking to people. So they can talk about stuff, they can talk about baggage, but I can tell you, I'm quite happy to talk about our record. Everywhere I go in this province, and I look at all the new hospitals or the expanded hospitals, I look at the new cancer center up in Prince George, I look at the bridges and the Sky Trains and the Canada Lines and the Evergreen Lines and the Sea to Sky Highways and the South Fraser Perimeter Roads and the Caribou Connectors, etc. That's our government. I'm very proud of that record. And I accept the good with the bad. I accept that we weren't a perfect government. And some of the decisions that were made, frankly, when I wasn't even part of government for the last decade, I wasn't happy with too when we were in government. But I accept that, the good and the bad. But I think our record overall, absolutely, I'm happy to have that debate with them every day of the week, and I'm sure I will in the legislature.
Thank you, follow-up.
No, thank you.
Okay, we're gonna go to Richard Zussman on over Zoom. Richard.
Hey, congratulations again, Kevin. Sorry I can't be there in person. On Saturday night, Val Litwin did not go up on stage with you. Have you had any conversations with him? Are you worried about rebuilding some existing fractions within the party as you move forward here?
Well, look, yes, I mean, the bottom line is I always worry. I want us all to work together. Candidly, I never knew Val Litwin before he announced that he was running for leadership. But I welcomed him as part of the group of individuals that were bringing forth new ideas and a fresh face into the political process. I never turn down other people that want to bring forward great ideas, and I hope that he will continue to be working with us. But I also think it's important to point out, what the results of the membership really said. On first ballot, I won almost half the votes of the membership of the BC Liberal Party. And if you do the post analysis, I'm told some 75% of the voters had Kevin Falcon as their first, second, or third choice. That's a pretty overwhelming majority of support from the membership of this party. And so I'm very proud of that. I hope Val will be part of us going forward, but that'll ultimately be his decision. But I can tell you this, I am very proud of the fact that I brought in literally thousands and thousands of new members, diverse members from the South Asian community, the Chinese community, the Caucasian community, that are all excited to be part of this party. And I'm going to continue doing that going forward, because that's how I think that we're going to build the coalition we need to earn back the trust of British Columbians and to form government in 2024.
Do you have a follow-up, Richard?
You mentioned Premier Horgan's health. Do you expect that you will be running against him in 2024, or are you planning on running potentially against somebody else as the NDP leader?
Well, obviously, I think it's a good question, Richard, but it's not something I have any control over. My sincere thought and prayers are that John Horgan has a full recovery, because he's a good man and he's got a family and he's got kids. And I want what's best for John Horgan, for sure. But look, I will, as leader of the BC Liberal Party, be happy to run against anybody in the next election. And it will be a clash of ideals, and it will be a clash of perspective and vision for the future of the province. It will not be personal, because that's not the kind of politics we need in British Columbia or in this country today. My goal is to bring people together. And we're going to disagree in a lot of things, and we will. That is our job, actually, as opposition. My job as opposition leader. We will do so without being disagreeable. We will be tough-minded. We will have a different vision in most cases about where we want to take this province. But I think we can do it in an agreeable way. And that's what I hope to do with John or whoever the leader of the NDP might be.
All right, we have under a pseudonym of Dale Ketchison is Vaughn Palmer dialing in.
Hello, Dale.
Yeah, I'm not in witness protection, okay? You've talked about a couple of the big challenges ahead. I know that the leadership candidates were sucking up most of the money last year, but have the Liberals really adjusted to what the New Democrats did to them when they got rid of big money in politics? And what are you going to do about it?
No, the candid answer is no, we haven't. And, you know, when they brought in that change, I can't help but pointing out that they did it only after receiving the largest donation from a union that has ever been received by any political party, the Steelworkers. And then they brought in the change that said only individual donations can now happen going forward. So I have to kind of smile at that. But look, our party hasn't got used to that new world, Vaughn, to be honest with you. But I'll tell you this, just watch me, because I'm going to go out, I'm going to crisscross the province, and I am going to out fundraise the NDP. That's a commitment I make right here, right now. That is part of the change you're going to see going forward. We're going to have to, you know, that's part of the reboot and the rebuild that we need to do at the BC Liberal Party. But one thing that I'm known for, Vaughn, is I'm not afraid of work, and I'm not afraid of working hard. I'll crisscross this province, and I will do everything I can to raise the money we need so that we can fund a first-class operation at the BC Liberal Party, and that we can tackle them head-to-head on the fundraising side. So just watch me on this one.
Do you have a follow-up one?
Yes, the party's postmortem on what went wrong in the 2020 election said that the Liberals tried to launch a stronger presence on social media. And when they got on social media, this is their assessment, they found it overwhelmed by NDP supporters.
Yeah.
Again, that's something that wasn't such a big deal the last time you were in politics. What kind of a plan do you have to deal with that?
Well, you know what I said to my team when I launched my leadership campaign, and if you, I have a great team, I should tell you. They're young, diverse, wonderful, very fluent with social media, much more than I am, quite frankly. But what I said to the team is, listen, I want us to be the best at this. I want to make sure that we set a standard, because going forward into the BC Liberal Party, that's going to change too. And I want to make sure we do a very good job on social media at the BC Liberal Party, should I you know, have the honor of becoming leader of the party. And we will do that. Vaughn, it won't happen overnight, though, I want to tell you, because I'm going to bring in new people. I'm going to make sure we got the best and the brightest working with us on that. But look, we're never going to win in that social media world. It is largely dominated by, you know, the NDP and left-wingers that frankly have more time to spend commenting on stuff like that than a lot of other folks do. But that doesn't matter. We will be good and we will be present. But I'll tell you this, in the world of politics, while that is important, and it is, I also know this, that grassroots politics is really important. And, you know, those living room meetings you have, the church basements, the temples, etc., that is a really, really important. And it doesn't happen overnight, but I'll tell you, over 2 years, as you talk to tens of thousands of people in every part of the province, you start building that army of supporters. And that's how we ultimately are going to win the election. Yes, we'll be good in social media. We've got a lot of work to do in that, but I'm not going to forget the importance of what I call grassroots politics. That still matters a lot today.
Thanks, Vaughn. Now we're going to go over to Andrew McLeod from the Tyee. Andrew.
Wow, there's a face in the past. Hi, Andrew.
Yeah, hi. Just trying to. You said a face to face. I'm not sure what you see there. I can turn my video on if that'll help you.
Yeah, no, of course, because I haven't seen you in so long. I want to see if you've changed here.
Hardly a hair. No more than you, I don't think.
Yeah, well, yeah, we both suffer from that same issue. So let's move on, shall we?
Wait, was that my two questions?
That's your
there?
first question, Andrew.
Great. Yeah, how's the hairline? That was the question. No, on Saturday night, you talked about governing with compassion. I think a lot of people, I mean, we all remember sort of 2001 to 2017, things like the minimum wage was frozen for a lot of that. Welfare rates were frozen. Policies were made less generous in lots of ways. How are people supposed to reconcile this idea that you're going to govern with compassion now with what they saw in your record?
Sure. Well, it's one of the reasons why I'm running right now, to be honest with you, because what we found last time when we got elected is we had inherited a decade of NDP government. What did that mean? They had doubled the debt, they ran deficits in 8 out of the 10 years, and we had some of the highest taxes in North America. And so and it, of course, exploded the size of government. And so we had to make some really difficult changes to get us back on a sustainable path as a government. And frankly, it's not a lot of fun, because it isn't. Nobody gets elected wanting to say, gee, I can't wait to say no to everybody that wants to do things. We get elected because we want to do great things. But I don't want to have to clean up a big mess from the NDP again. And so that's why it's important to get in there and cut them off at the pass before they can do too much damage to the economy and the finances of the province of British Columbia. That's why I'm doing this, Andrew. And that's the difference. Because what I want to do is I want to achieve great things. The reason why I want to have a thriving, strong private sector economy is because that gives us the revenues we need so that we can do the kind of great things that we did back, especially in the latter part of while I was in government, where we can give big bonuses to the public service, where we can have surplus budgets so that we can invest in hospitals and cancer centers and infrastructure in every part of the province. And we can do it while having a AAA credit rating and be the envy of almost every other government in North America. That's what I'd like to get to, but the longer they are there, the harder it is for us to get there. I don't want to have to repeat what happened in 2001 when we had to make all those tough choices to get us back on a sustainable path. That's why I'm running now, Andrew, to stop them before it gets too bad.
Do a follow-up, Andrew.
Yeah, sure. Something else you said Saturday night, you said, let me just be really clear about one thing. I want to see British Columbians of all races, sexualities, genders, cultures, religions, and economic backgrounds know that they can join us as proud BC Liberals. I'm wondering, I mean, part of the story of the last election was there were people, MLAs who were running for re-election who seemed to be off that message. And I'm wondering if there were threads in the party that why was it important to say that Saturday night, and what were the threads that made it necessary?
It was important to say that not just on the night I won, but if you go back and look at the day I launched my leadership, I said exactly the same thing, because I wanted the party membership to be really clear about why I was running and how I want this party to be different. And the reason I wanted total clarity on that, the kind of issues that I would be campaigning on as a leader, affordable childcare, the environment, mental health and addictions, growing the economy, et cetera, but also the kind of diversity and tolerance that I want to see in this party, because I would rather not win. And I mean this sincerely. I would rather not win unless the party's prepared to be rock solid behind me in the change in direction I want to take this party. And the result that I saw on Saturday night, frankly, made me feel very, very good, because what the party is saying is we support the direction you're trying to go in, and we back you up on that. Because I will always say this, people are free to have their opinions, and sometimes they can have unpopular opinions. I will never tolerate intolerance. That's very important to me, and I want everyone to know that. I welcome social conservatives into this caucus. I welcome folks from all religious backgrounds, as long as they're all going to be tolerant, because that is very, very important to me. I think all of us know how the world has changed. And I think that we just need to, as a public, go forward in a spirit of openness and friendship and tolerance. And I think if we do that, we're going to have, frankly, a better province, a better country, and a better citizenry. And that's something that I wanted to establish absolutely from the get-go when I launched, and also when I won.
All right, over to Yi-Wen Chen from Omni Cantonese.
Hi, congratulations.
Thank you.
Hi, so I'm just wondering, what's your plans on preserving Chinatown and helping the Chinese community?
This is such an important question. You know, every time I walk through Chinatown, my heart breaks because you've got these folks that are struggling to hang on and keep their businesses viable. And yet you look at what's happening on the streets and it's frankly scary. And I have to say this, that, you know, we have to have a situation where people can feel like they can walk in the streets of the cities across this province. It's not just in Vancouver, it's just particularly bad in Vancouver, without having the fear of being assaulted in stranger attacks. And that has happened even to a cabinet minister under this NDP government. And that's not right. I want women and young people to feel that they can walk in the streets without feeling like they're going to be under real potential threat. And in the city of Vancouver, we saw from the Vancouver Police Department statistics last year, 1,705 stranger attacks. That means individuals walking down the street that were attacked suddenly. And some of these attacks are very serious. An individual had their throat cut. Another individual is sexually assaulted. We just recently saw a poor gentleman that was stabbed by some complete stranger in Tim Hortons, for goodness sakes. And a young woman on Georgia Street, right in front of a major hotel on one of the busiest streets, being violently attacked by a stranger. This is totally unacceptable. And what concerns me is this street disorder and social chaos has gotten worse over the last 5 to 6 years. And I don't see anything changing in the government's approach. What I hear is we're going to do more of the same and hope to get different results. That's not good enough. Chinatown deserves to have safe streets so that we can start to attract people back to Chinatown, that the merchants can feel like they can operate safely there, and that their customers can feel confident knowing that they can go there and shop and support the local merchants without feeling like they're putting their lives at risk. And I think the Vancouver police are doing everything they possibly can. I think we got an NDP mayor there, frankly, that needs to figure out that cutting police budgets and going after them is not the solution. Supporting the police and making sure they have the resources they need and backing them up is going to be important to help ensure that we got streets that people can feel safe on.
Ewan, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, so how can we do more to combat racism?
Well, you know, this is also very, very important. And I have said publicly that it is so important as leaders that we be very responsible in what we say. And you'll know as well as I do that I have criticized David Eby for some of the comments he made around housing years ago that frankly tried to imply, based on a ridiculous survey that was done on a few dozen homes in the west side of Vancouver, that he then tried to suggest, well, the issue of our housing prices is all because of Chinese buyers. That's effectively what the message was. And I think that did a deep disservice and frankly encouraged a lot of, unfortunately, racist attitudes towards a lot of the Chinese community. And we know that the issue is much more complex than that, for goodness sakes. It's issues of supply, it's immigration. We've got 70,000 people a year moving primarily into the lower mainland. The first thing they do is look for housing when they arrive. And if we've got local governments that aren't producing that housing in sufficient quantities, guess what? Economics 101, supply and demand, you're going to have rising prices. And so we have to be clear about the fact that we've got to be careful in the language we use so that we don't create a situation where there's going to be the kind of anti-Asian racism and sentiment that we have seen, unfortunately, increasing. It's important that we all understand we're in this together. The Chinese community has been such an important part of the building of British Columbia. It would not be what it is today without the Chinese community and the incredible contribution they've made to the province of British Columbia. And I just want to make sure all the public understands we're all in this together and we've all made tremendous contributions to this province. So let's figure out how we solve the problems without trying to find blame, especially towards any one community.
Thanks. Now we're going to go over
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
over to Lisa Yusta. Lisa.
Hi there. Congratulations, Kevin.
Thank you, Lisa.
A little slightly different topic here, but I was surprised on Saturday night to see so many unmasked at the leadership convention, particularly at the end. You know, all of the people vying for leader were standing there unmasked, and you guys are across the street from St. Paul's where they just dealt with, you know, these anti-mask, anti-vax protesters. So I'm just wondering, considering the rules are right now, public health rules, that you should be masked, like, is this Do you think it sends the right message, and is it indicative of where you stand on public health measures?
Not at all. Look, I mean, we took off our masks so that we could have a photo taken, and I don't think that's entirely unreasonable. But look, our caucus, the BC Liberal Caucus, has been very supportive of the government and of Dr. Bonnie Henry and the public health orders through this entire process. In spite, as you know, of some of our MLAs taking a lot of criticism and a lot of vitriol and hatred, frankly, about the position they've taken. We've been very, very clear about that. But I will say one thing. It is important, as we realize that this is moving from a pandemic to an endemic, that the government also be clear about the timeline going forward so that people can know that there is an end to this. And we've all done our bit. We've got over 90% fully vaccinated population in British Columbia. And British Columbians can be very proud. They've done everything that's been asked of them. And as we go forward, I think it's just important to remember that we also have to think about how we can move forward and make sure that we can, get back to as regular a life as we can, knowing that this will be an endemic that will be with us as we go forward. And we respect the decisions that have been made, and we will continue to going forward as long as there is clarity on the timeline for coming out of this.
Lisa, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, sure. Because there is clarity right now about what the rules are, and you had an MLA who you've named as climate change critic who pretty much didn't wear a mask the whole night. So I find it hard to square all those because the rules are clear right now, and what's being asked of us is clear right now, and that's clearly not what necessarily all of your critics in your caucus feel like they need to follow.
So look, I can't comment about an individual because I didn't see where everyone was sitting. I understand that everyone was sitting at tables and following the rules as they are meant to be followed. But look, I will make sure that we focus on doing as we have always done, following the rules that have been set out. And as I say, the government is talking about a relaxation of those rules and just prior to Family Day. And I think, frankly, from all the people I've talked to, they're certainly waiting with bated breath and expectation that that will happen. Thank you.
We're going to wrap things up with Fran Yanor from the brand new Northern Beat. Fran, congratulations on your new publication. Welcome.
Sorry there. Thank you, Andrew, and congratulations. We haven't met yet, but I'm sure we will at some point. I just would like, you've referenced something related to the protest news. I think you called it chaos in the streets right now. So my question is, and you said that you would do different as a government. So what is it that you would do if you were government in terms of dealing with many people think is an escalating issue?
Sure. This is an issue that's very close to my heart. I've spent the last better part of a decade on the board of the Street to Home Foundation, working with homelessness, creating new housing, and more importantly, doing research into some of the issues. How do people become homeless? Who are these folks? What are the issues they're dealing with? And one of the things we realize is obviously there's two big issues we're dealing with. Mental health is a huge issue in addictions. And as I said in an op-ed piece I did, so probably about a year ago in the Vancouver Sun, I said, look, we have to understand that this isn't an issue that needs to be about politics, because I think every government deserves some level of responsibility for the situation. Going back to the social credit days when they started the process of closing down Riverview and Essendale and releasing these folks into the public, supposedly they were supposed to have supports. But what we all know is they never had the proper supports. And so now we've got a whole group of folks out in the streets with really, in many cases, very severe mental health issues. And that is not compassion to me. That is actually the exact opposite of compassion. And this idea that we should just allow our neighbors, our relatives, sisters, brothers, parents, whatever the case may be, to be on the streets being exploited, being abused, especially by drug dealers, because many of these people now become drug addicts. So they've got an addiction and a mental health issue. We have failed this population, and doing more of the same is not going to fix this problem. And one of the things I have called for is a reopening of not the old institutionalization model of the past, but something like the Red Leafs building that opened in the former Riverview grounds that was started by the BC Liberals, that can provide 24/7 care, but compassionate care with proper medical supports, psychiatric supports for this most severely damaged population, because they deserve that. And I'm happy to make a very significant upfront investment to take care of those folks, because they deserve it, because they're our friends and they're our family and they're our neighbors. And we will do that because there will be, here's the good news, lots of savings on the other side in terms of policing, in terms of fire response, in terms of the social disorder and chaos that's often caused by folks who, through no fault of their own, are struggling with mental health issues and are increasingly a danger, not just to themselves, but to others. So we have an obligation, I believe, as a compassionate society to deal with that and deal with it differently. And the NDP will say, oh, he wants to go back to institutionalizing folks. No, but they have to defend what we're doing to those folks now. And it's indefensible in my view. That's number one. Number two is we've got people that have addiction issues. And I just want to be clear about this. It is not a moral failure, okay? And we have to start treating it like the health issue that it really is. But it cannot be, as this government is currently doing, just saying it's about making sure they just have a safe supply and the problem is solved. No, we have to focus on helping them get off of their addictions. And that means making sure that we've got addiction recovery programs that are modeled on processes and programs that work, and that we fund them and we give people an option, every option, to help get off of their addiction. And that we recognize that there will be failures along the way. And that is not a moral lapse, that is just a failure. We all know folks that suffer from addictions, whether it's alcohol or whether it's drugs, particularly during this pandemic. And we owe them the support to help them get through this. And it's something I am very passionate about because candidly, I know people that have died as a result of mental health issues and addiction issues. And today, unfortunately, we're in a position where we've seen the highest numbers of fatalities as a result of opioid overdoses and overdoses generally. That's not right. And it's more than we've seen die from the pandemic. And somebody has to be a voice for those folks. And I want to make sure that there's someone out there talking about different ways of dealing with this problem. Because if we keep doing what this current government is doing, which is more of the same, we're going to continue to get the same worsening results. And I cannot stomach that. So this is something I feel very strongly about, and I'm going to be talking about more in the future, almost on a weekly, daily basis. Thank you.
Thanks, Fran. You have a follow-up?
Yes, please. Thank you for the answer. Somewhat related, but not really. In terms of the protests that are happening, and what some people characterize as a sort of increasing divisiveness in our society. More of a philosophical question. What do you think that politicians, our leaders, what's their role? What's their responsibility? What should they be doing in terms of de-escalating? Or do they have that responsibility?
Fran, I want to thank you for asking what I think is a very, very important question. It's actually, to be perfectly candid, one of the reasons why I'm coming back into politics. I am really concerned, not just in a BC or Canadian level, but around the world. You saw what happened in America under Trump and all the challenges and the divisiveness and hatred and racism and things coming up. And I know it's in part because we are in a different world. And while the internet brings some very good things to us, it also has a dark side. And I've always been very concerned about how the algorithms reinforce bias and they get people down, frankly, rabbit holes to where they start, really talking about some pretty odd things and reinforcing some really bad things that are not helpful in bringing society back together. And it means that we as political leaders have a higher responsibility to ensure that the language we use and the way we talk about issues isn't done in a way that's going to help create more cleavages in society. We have to work on how we can bring people together. And that means we're going to have to tolerate a lot of hatred, coming our way too. And I get that already. I understand that. I've got big shoulders. We all do. But it is important that we try to use language that brings people together. And, the convoys and the truckers and all the rest of it is emblematic of some frustrations that people are feeling. And it's always, whenever you get those kind of things happening, I could tell you, because I've organized protests myself. And you always have to be careful about the kind of people that sometimes get attracted to those things and do everything you can to keep them out, because you don't want those voices of hatred or racism or whatever the case may be to overshadow other messages you may be trying to get out. So my message to British Columbians is this: we've been through a very, very difficult 2 years. And let's also be candid about the fact that it has mental health impacts, some more severe than others, but all of us are feeling a sense of frustration. And it is not we should be careful not to be too judgmental or smug about the people that are expressing those frustrations. Understand how people feel, how tired they are about this whole thing. And let's try and work together, bring people together, and go forward in a way that we can hopefully come out of this more united and feeling more good about ourselves as a province and as a country.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Kevin, for making yourself available. We've sent out a press release that has a full list of all of the new caucus roles. If you don't have that, feel free to reach out to me and I can get you a copy of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Great to see everyone again. It feels different. Congrats. Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Recording stopped.
Thanks for making it over here.